All right. Okay, well, welcome. Glad you guys made it. You traveled far and wide. So this is our weekly patient education talks designed to help educate you guys, empower, and hopefully entertain you a little bit. Why do we do these talks? It's because you guys are given limited information. That's the first reason. You've been diagnosed with whatever condition, macular degeneration, glaucoma, eye stroke, RP, Stargardt, Usher syndrome, whatever, whatever the condition is, and you're told it's genetic, or you're old, or you're SOL, or we don't really know. So sometimes, there are other cases that we know are more systemic, like diabetic retinopathy. Of course, if there's an acute trauma, like an eye stroke or something like that, we know that with macular degeneration, there is accumulation of drusen. We know with retinitis pigmentosa, there's a genetic component sometimes, but it's not enough. It's not enough information to have a thorough understanding. So part of the education is to increase to a higher level of sophistication, so you guys can actually understand not only what is going on, but how the treatment works in this more of a broad global perspective of what we're doing and really the role that we're taking here, not only to help you guys give you treatment to help improve the vision, but also to empower you guys with some tools and understandings and mindsets and just a broader spectrum of what's going on so that you guys know what to do, okay? Through the presentation, you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. This is for you guys, it's not for me. I've heard myself do this quite a few times, so I know the content pretty well. You guys don't. So, and again, too, we're recording this. We have a lot of these sessions recorded on our YouTube page and some on our Facebook page. So, feel free to review them. A lot of times you go back, you kind of miss something, you want to hear it a second time. This is the reason that we're recording these, because we have so many people like, oh, I want so-and-so to see it, or my mom to see it, or my wife or husband, whoever to see it. Maybe you have a friend who's dealing with a similar condition, so, it's a way that we can help spread the education. So, healing your eyes with Chinese medicine and naturopathic medicine. Naturopathic medicine is also functional medicine. So, let me just get my here. Okay, that might not work, so we have to go digitally. Okay, so the treatment methods that we use in clinic, I developed in the late 90s. I graduated acupuncture school in 96. Kind of traveled around a little bit for the first couple years in practice. Went to China, went to Europe, studying postgraduate, trying to find more about acupuncture and ophthalmology and what's available for you guys. So the last 22 to 23 years of doing research, field research, and kind of looking at peer review studies, we have created this program, right? We created acupuncture protocols, we have electrotherapy protocols, we have laser acupuncture protocols, we have supplements, diet, nutrition, exercises, stuff like that. So it is a holistic philosophy, and it's a holistic style treatment. Of course, you have eyes, that's what you're here for. There's an eye condition. On top of that, you have a body that's attached to that. So the idea here is, unless you have like an acute issue where there was like, God forbid, a trauma or something like that to your vision, most of these degenerative conditions are systemic. So that means the better care you take of your body overall, the slower the progression of your condition is going to be. Basically, the better you take care of yourselves, the healthier you are, the slower the progression of your vision loss. You may even be able to stop it. So that is not a conversation that is had really anywhere else. It's very, eye doctors, a lot of them are very good friends of mine, but they tend to be quite myopic, right? Or they're just kind of focused on the eyes, and it's not really understood or even explored what systemically or what other factors come into play. Okay, so everything we do here is research-based and proven. That means it's gone through research. The acupuncture protocols I used, as some of you guys know, we have been researched through Johns Hopkins University, researched through Nova Southeastern University. The supplements we recommend all have research behind it. If it's something new that I'm trying, whether it's a clinical modality or a nutritional supplement or something like that, I'll let you know. I'll say, look, there's not much research on this, it's kind of new, but we're giving it a try. My criteria is very simple. It has to work, and there has to be no side effects. No harm, probably can help. That's it. Pretty simple and straightforward. Our goal is pretty simple, to help improve and recover vision. I'm going to swap this out real quick because I think this is, my battery might have died here. So let me see if this is going to upgrade me a little bit. Let's see if we got this. I don't think that's going to let me do it either. Okay, I'll just do it manually then. Alrighty, so moving over to our next slide. The first thing that I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about is my role. Beyond being a doctor, or Dr. Andy, my role is to educate you guys, right? Or anybody. Before anybody decides to become a patient or decides to work with me, they got to learn, like understand a little bit more about me and what I do, and more importantly, about you. You want to learn more about you and your eyes and what's going on, because there's like a gazillion question marks. So like, what is going on? What caused this? Why do I have this? What can I do about it? Why is there no conventional treatment? Why am I being told that there's nothing right now to offer? There's all these questions, and then beyond that, all the anxiety and depression and frustrations and like what if, or what's my future going to look like? There's a lot going on here. So I like the analogy here of the lighthouse. That's a kind of role that I take. And what does a lighthouse do? A lighthouse doesn't like go around telling you, you should do this, you should do that. Just illuminates. This is safe. Here are the rocks. Here's the harbor. Here are the rocks. You're driving your boat. You decide you want to smash them up on the rocks and not take care of yourself and accelerate your vision loss. That's your free will. You want to do that? That's great. You want to do some things, implement some strategies that are going to help slow down and possibly recover some vision, or at least, you know, kind of stop the vision loss. Great. You know, you want to understand a little bit more deeply what's going on, body, mind, spirit, biochemically, neurologically, what's going on with these conditions, the role of the immune system and the vascular system. We're going to talk about that today as well. So the idea is to give you guys perspective. It's to give you tools. It's to give you guys input and information. Based on that information, you decide what's best for you, right? I'm not making the shots. I'm just giving you guys information. If it's something that's useful or seems like it's something that would be beneficial based on what you think is reasonable and appropriate for yourself, then we move forward, okay? So when we look at illumination, or we start to understand or look at everything, we literally turn the lights on, we have to start with telling the truth. What's the facts? Like, what's going on? What's the reality of the situation that I have to deal with? Not so easy, right? When you first get diagnosed with this, you want to ignore it, you're stressed out. Sometimes you go into fight or flight. That means like, I can't even read this. This is so upsetting, this is so stressful. If I go online and Google, like, I'm just going to pretend that Google doesn't exist, so I don't have to like check this out. Or you get crazy and obsessed about it, and you're up till 3 in the morning doing research, trying to figure out, what can I do? And maybe it's not you, maybe it's like you're caring for a loved one who's dealing with this. So you're obsessively trying to find answers for anything and anything you can do to help, okay? So, and that can be really overwhelming, because there's a lot of good content on the internet, but there's also a lot of junk on there that's, you know, kind of out there in miscommunication. Like, again, you're told there's nothing that can be done. Not really true, is it? Maybe there's no drug, maybe there's no surgery, but to say that you can do nothing to help slow down the progress of your vision loss, like, come on, it's not true. You may have been told that there's limited and no conventional treatment. Is what it is. You know, that's just a fact. And the possibility that we're looking at now is that you may be able to recover and preserve some vision. All right, we're going to talk about strategies on how that works. It's been my experience, having done this over the last 23 years or so, that an integrative strategy, an integrative approach gets the best clinical outcomes. And what that means is we're not against Western biomedicine, right? We need that. It's awesome. There's been a lot of advancements in genetics and stem cell therapy and biotechnology and nanotechnologies coming down the pike. Like, there's really cool stuff going on. But we can't just abandon everything that came before 100 years of conventional biomedicine. You know, there's like 4,000 years of world medicine and history and understanding that we need to bring to the table and add that to conventional biomedicine to, again, produce the best clinical outcomes for patients. So that's really the idea. Illumination, so we start with the facts, right? We know what's going on, but we're people. We can't just sit with the facts, because we emote. You know, some of us more, some of us less, some of us a little bit more emotional, some of us a little bit more left brain, a little more logical. But we all have feelings. We all have emotional responses to these things that are going on. And sometimes they can get a little overwhelming, right? The emotions can get a little overwhelming. We get anxious, we get nervous, we get upset. we get depressed. We have a lot of feelings around the situation that we're dealing with, and sometimes we just don't know how to deal with them. And there's nobody really to talk to about it. Even if you go to therapy, maybe the therapist can be there, but they don't really know what it's like to lose a bit. So it's like this whole big thing. So some of the feelings that you may or may not have experienced at different times, and these are all normal, are things like denial, especially initially. We just talked about that when you're first diagnosed. Then feelings of isolation, right? You feel alone in this. So what happens is, even if you're the one that's doing the research or like trying to figure out for like a family member or a loved one who's dealing with this, like you're the one doing all the work, and it's like, you know, it's like you can't get the help that you need. Or you're the person diagnosed and dealing with this condition, and you're like, you know, what is going on with this? So there's isolation, which I want to take a little side note on that. So with isolation, the one thing you guys have noticed probably since you've been here already is this. The community that we build in our office is just that. A lot of you guys, and even two of you guys have mentioned to me this week, you'd never met or talked to anybody before who had an eye condition like you've had, and that's the majority. Most people dealing with glaucoma, macular degeneration, RP, Stargardt's, Usher's, optic nerve issues have not really had conversations. Maybe you get an online, you know, kind of, you know, web warrior conversation going on, you know, like the keyboard warriors, but, you know, it's not really connecting with people who are dealing with it. And more than that, connecting with people who are positive, who are really self-advocating and really like can do, want to do, as opposed to like naysaying and like, oh, you know, don't waste your time and, you know, you should just give up, there's nothing for you. We don't want any of that, right? So the cool thing about coming here and connecting and talking to people who are dealing with the same issue is what? Is you start to connect, right? You connect with people, you start sharing stories and experiences and what's it like for you. And guess what? You can't be connected and isolated at the same time, right? It's just law of opposites. So that is healing. You know, we're aware of that. We recognize that. So like we encourage you guys to like hang out and talk and like to share your experiences. There's a lot of value in you know, feeling appreciated, understood, heard, valued, you know, that, hey, I'm not just like this crazy person who's going blind, who's miserable. Like, you know, it's really, there's really other people who you can connect to, and how they deal with the stress around it as well. So desperation, helplessness, hopelessness, sometimes despair, anger, you know, we get really frustrated, sometimes fear of rejection, right? We start hiding, like we don't really want to tell people, maybe for work or maybe in relationships, we're afraid that like we'll get fired, maybe they don't hire us, or maybe they're, you know, if we're dating, sometimes it's like, you know, judgment and stuff like that. Guilt and shame, those two go together. We call that affectionately shilt, and those are, in my opinion, arguably the worst, most useless emotions. Like shame and guilt, like if you do something that's messed up and you identify it and correct it and you fix it, great. So acute shame and guilt will serve a purpose to keep the ego in check, right? If you know you did something that wasn't so good. But long-term sustained shame and guilt, useless, because you're just beating yourself up. Like, get over it. Let yourself off the hook. You figure it out, you correct it, you apologize, you move on. That's it. Depression, anxiety, just going to have some bad days, you know? Resentment, humiliation. Look, it's embarrassing sometimes. You know, you do some you know, tripping over people, or you go and shake somebody's hand, and you know, you gotta like turn the lights up because you can't read, or somebody, you know, is, hey, or read this, read the menu, and you're like, can't, you know. So these things, these day-to-day things come up. So those are the feelings that we have to deal with. And the thing here is these feelings, they're negative, right? These kind of, we classify these as negative emotions, but we're normal. We're supposed to have them. We're supposed to have bad days. That's normal. What happens is when these sit around and fester for a while, when we perseverate and we just can't shake the anxiety, we can't shake the hopelessness, we can't shake the despair, the irritability, or the blame, or like, why me? You know, like we can't shake that. So what happens is those feelings sit and they just kind of magnify and they build and they build, and we start thinking about it and thinking about it, and we amplify the feelings and the thoughts and the feelings, and we start practicing. We get in a habit. We get really good at thinking about these negative thoughts about our vision, right? We're just rehearsing. Okay, well, what's going to happen? I'm rehearsing, stressing out about how things are going to be in the future, right? We practice this. So the take home here is that we are going to have negative emotions, but they're just going to be like storms, right? Just appreciate that you're just having a shitty day. you know, and it's just a bad day that you're having, and it's just like a storm comes. You know, it's really nice. Yesterday was pouring rain, it was windy, but the sun comes out today. That's weather systems. So we look at emotions in the same way, or negative emotions in the same way. They're going to come, but just kind of come and let them go, and when they're gone, they're gone. You know, and just don't like, oh my God, when's the next time the storm's going to come? No, you don't do that. It's like, oh, it's sunny out and everything. Oh, another storm's coming. All right, I'm going to go in and everything like that, and I'll just wait to come out when it's sunny again. So the focus here is just kind of accepting the fact we're going to have some negative emotions, but don't hold on to them, and appreciate that everything moves. You know, it is transient. You're going to get over it. Just, you know, do things to kind of make yourself feel a little bit better. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. So again, what happens is when we think and we feel and we think and we feel negatively, over time, it amplifies those frequencies and those signals and those emotions that we have. So if they're particularly negative emotions, they become negative belief systems, right? We have these thoughts, repeated, feelings, repeated, we keep repeating those. They anchor into our psyche, and they become habitual ways of thinking, i.e. belief systems. So these belief systems, if they're strong enough and they're negative enough, they can actually prevent us from doing things that'll help our vision, right? So we have belief systems that could say things like, oh, I'm not losing my vision. What's that called? Denial, right? We're denying it. Can you get help if you're in denial? No, because there's no problem, right? Or medicine will save my vision. Maybe if you have something like cataracts or, you know, something like that, maybe, you know, stem cell gene therapy is coming, but right now it's not there. So this is kind of like a hope. You know, we're kind of like, hope is hope. It's not real. It's like someday in the future, maybe. It ultimately doesn't put you in a place of power, right? Hope is positive, but it's not really powerful because it's not present. The only power, true power we have is in present time. And if it's not here right now and it doesn't exist or work for me, you know, it's cool. It's better than like stinking thinking, you know, that, oh, nothing's never going to work for me. It's better, but it's still, we still want to have like an eyeball on the future, but we still want to be rooted in present time. Or nothing can help me. What's that? Resignation. Total resignation. Ah, I was told nothing can help me, or I believe nothing can help me. Well, all right, that's, you know, I believe you believe that, and if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. You know, but that there's going to be a cost to that in terms of your capacity or desire to get help for yourself. My doctor said not to waste your time. I get it, right? This is brand new. It's not conventional treatment, right? We're growing up on, you know, mostly biomedicine. And doctors, why are they saying this is a waste of time? There's a couple reasons. I used to have a lot to say about this, but I don't have so much anymore. There are a couple things. The most important thing to understand here is when you talk to your doctor, if you're going to talk about with him or her about any alternative treatments that you're going to consider, the first thing you want to ask them is this: what is your experience with X? Acupuncture, vitamins, oils. Start there. What is your experience with acupuncture? Let's say that, all right, because that's the treatment we're using. Okay, right there. What is that question going to do? It's going to qualify them. What does qualified means? Qualified means, do you have experience and grounds for even voicing an opinion? You know, I could give you all my opinions about Egyptian hieroglyphics. They are cool stuff. I was watching Discovery Channel last week. They are cool, really cool pictures. They're in Egypt, too. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So, but like, right? So my point is, I know it's silly, but I am not qualified. I did not go to school. I don't know Egyptian hieroglyphics. I can't, you know, I can talk about they're cool, but if you want to have a deep dive conversation about like the history, like I'll listen, but right now I can't give anything because I haven't had experience. So if we use that relative to talking to physicians or anybody else, you know, quite frankly, like, oh, well, acupuncture doesn't work, or maybe whatever the opinion is, what is your experience been with them? Have you gone for acupuncture yourself? Have you taken any courses on acupuncture? Have you read any journals? Do you have any patients that have had acupuncture? What do you know about it? So haven't had it yourself, don't have any patients, haven't read any studies, never took a weekend course, and don't really know much about the research that's gone on. Okay, you may be awesome, like a really great doctor, but you're disqualified. You know, you're not qualified to comment on acupuncture, which is fine. You may have your opinion, but as a patient, you should just understand where that information is coming from, okay? And to the doctor's defense, I have a lot of great friends who are retinal specialists, glaucoma specialists, ophthalmologists, retinal surgeons. On their end, there's an industry standard. It's a box, okay? This is what, you know, we recommend, and this is what we don't. And the saying right now in conventional ophthalmology is that there's insufficient evidence to support acupuncture or warrant it is a recommended modality, which is fine. You know, they don't know enough about this if it works or not. So if a doctor, for example, from their perspective, there's a big CYA element in medicine, right? Cover your rear end. You know, that's kind of pretty important for most people. It's almost more, most healthcare providers are taking that as a first precaution, and patient care is second, just because of the way things are right now. It is what it is. But, you know, they don't know. So if they don't know and they make a referral for something they don't know about, they're not comfortable. And what if something goes wrong? You know, it's acupuncture, nothing can go wrong, but they don't know that. You know, what if they refer out and somebody gets hurt and they get nerve damage? Like, then it's on them, and they're looking at malpractice. So I know this because I've had a lot of conversations with my MD friends, and I'm like, why don't you guys recommend anybody? Like, we can't. It's lawsuits, and it's outside the industry standard, and we're just not making the recommendation now. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. Now we do have a lot of local eye doctors who do refer, and we interrefer with each other. But again, the idea there is just to, if you're getting kickback or resistance from your doctor or anybody else, just ask them, like, where's the resistance coming from? Is it qualified and is it substantiated? Like, do you know somebody who's had a bad experience with acupuncture? Like, or have you firsthand? Like, what's your reasoning behind that? Okay? So you don't have to like be like in their face, you don't have to be like confrontational, but just ask about what's your experience been, and that'll tell you. I'm afraid and I hate needles. This is usually little kids that we treat. Some of you guys may have seen we have little kids coming in and out of here. We treat a lot of kids in our AcuVision Junior program. They're not too hip on needles, you know, especially like 8 or like 10 and under. So we use our needle-free treatments. We use our laser electrotherapies and nutrition and stuff like that. We get really good results with kids. I'm skeptical. I don't believe in alternative medicine. Again, I get it. This is new. You know, most of us grew up on conventional biomedicine. It's a new theory. It's a new frame. It's a new way of looking at this. Or finally, this is a big one. I talk to a lot of people, and I hear this a couple times a month. Oh, I'm just too busy and I can't deal with it. I'm too busy right now. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Life is busy. I am not like denying that, negating that. I completely respect that. However, with these types of conditions, if you ignore it, it is not going to go away, right? This is like the analogy I give is like a leak in your roof, right? You got a little drip, okay? You know, it's a little drip. What happens to a little drip if you let it go? It becomes a big drip and eventually your roof caves in, right? Take care of a small problem, patch it up, and, you know, pay attention to when you need to pay attention to it. But people who are like, really, I don't have time for this, what's happening and what I hear when these people say this is this: I don't have time for me. I'm not willing to make time for me because I'm not the most important person in my world. You know, I get that and I understand that, but I really like to help people change that and reframe that. Like, think about it, guys. If you're taking care of everybody else, which is great, you know, it's definitely noble, and to help, we all want to help each other out. But when you're tired and stressed and exhausted and just not 100%, like, how good are you anyway at helping people, right? You're shot. Like, you're like worthless at best sometimes. So there's an old saying, keep the blade sharp. That means take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Take care of yourself. We're going to talk more about that. So I don't have time for this means I don't have time for me. And guess what? If you don't have time for it now, you're going to have a lot of time in the future when the vision really starts to go. So I really urge people to take this seriously and not obsess over it, but just start considering, what can I do now to help slow this process down, okay? So let's shift gears now and talk about more tactical stuff and understanding the biology and the physiology about what happens and how these factors can contribute to progressive vision loss. specifically circulation, inflammation, and oxidative stress. So, simply stated, we got to have blood flow to the eyes, right? All cells of our body are miniature versions of us. We need to breathe air. We need to get rid of exhale, carbon dioxide, so respiration, food, digestion, food in, toxins out. All right, we need to do that. We need to breathe and take in air and get rid of take in food and get rid of waste. So you guys may not have known that the retina is the highest oxygen consuming tissue in the whole body. Very, very, very sensitive to oxygen fluctuations. Now, why would we have oxygen fluctuations in our body? First thing is the blood volume, right? We know that we have these little red blood cells, all right? These are what oxygen is carried throughout our body. So if the quantity of blood and the quantity of red blood cells are decreased, we're not going to have that oxygen carrying capacity, and we're going to have what's called anemia, which is low blood volume, and a reduced, like, oxygen travels with the blood. Like oxygen and blood, they travel together. So lower blood, lower oxygen. Women are more susceptible to this. Why? Because a certain thing happens every month where we lose blood, right? Especially if we're already slightly anemic. So I do have patients who say they do report they see dips in the vision during bleeding times. We know for a fact, especially with cases like retinitis pigmentosa in that family, that at postpartum, after there's a lot of blood loss, I've had a lot of patients who've had surgeries. Of course, there's blood loss in surgeries. Report right after surgery, right after childbirth, that the vision declines. Why? Drop in blood. Of course, the trauma and the inflammation around that too can also accelerate it, but we know for a fact there's a decreased blood. It's going to reduce the circulation. What happens too when you go under? It drops your blood pressure, reduce peripheral blood flow, right? Your breathing, your respiration slows a little bit when you're under getting surgery. So that's going to reduce peripheral blood flow temporarily to the hands and feet. Okay, really important. So oxygen, remember, what I want you guys to remember here is oxygen is very, very, very important to the retina, optic nerve, and brain, the entire visual system. Okay, we're not just talking about the eyes here. The brain is what sees. The eyes are just the camera that take the light information in, send it to the brain for processing. Okay? Inflammation. Inflammation, 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 inflammation. The whole world's talking about inflammation now, right? Number one thing, Western biomedicine, alternative, complementary, even Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, inflammation is huge. Functional medicine. So, yeah, you know, inflammation can be something that is a significant factor for a lot of these conditions. However, inflammation is an effect. It is not a cause of disease, right? That's like saying fire just is. Fire always has a fuel source. So we need to, again, be a little bit more sophisticated, understand the nature of where the inflammation is coming from so that we can deal with the underlying cause if inflammation is present and a factor that's contributing to your condition. Where does inflammation come from? I'm so glad you asked. Infections in the body. Lyme, Epstein-Barr, viruses, flus, bacterial infections, yeast, molds, anything like that. Anything foreign life forms that the body is going to attack, that, you know, our immune system has to go after. Autoimmune and allergies, right? That's the immune system being hyperactive, right? When sometimes we get infections or things like cancer, the immune system is suppressed, right? So weak immune system. The other side of it is a hyperactive immune system, which is very, a lot of eye conditions, specifically like RP, Usher's, and Stargardt's, we know that has a lot to do with a hyperactive immune system. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Toxins and heavy metals, the body has to heat, burn those up, incinerate them. The garbage in the body, that's how we get rid of waste in our body. All right, so if there's more toxins, the body has to oxidize that and break that down through inflammatory processes. So if you have more, you know, live in a more polluted area, you're eating more junk food, your body is more polluted from air, water, and food, you know, there's more cleanup job that has to be done. Emotional stress, definitely inflammatory. Anybody ever get a headache from being stressed out? You know, fibromyalgia, of course, we've all had, like, you know, TMJ or tension. We know that emotional stress is, we've had people, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard of this too, people get really stressed out, stroke out, heart attack, It happens. That's from the inflammation, the vasoconstriction, and the increase in blood, the sudden increase in blood flow through the blood vessels. Poor diet, too much junk food, not enough healthy foods, right? Junky food, junky body. Metabolic issues like diabetes, right? We know diabetes. There's such a thing called diabetic retinopathy. The insulin shifts, the dysregulation of insulin starts to strip the blood vessels in the body. They start to break down, called attenuation, and they start to crack and they lose their structural integrity. So they crack, they bleed. We get things like diabetic retinopathy and peripheral neuropathies. It breaks down the vascular system and the nerves. Okay. Also hormonal issues, right? The adrenals can be tapped out from some of these conditions, and the adrenal glands secrete what? Cortisol, among other hormones, which is your natural anti-inflammatory, right? If the adrenals are shot because you're dealing with a bunch of stuff, or you have thyroid issues or other pituitary metabolic issues or hormonal issues, we have to identify that because your body can get wrapped up in these metabolic hormonal issues that are going to, again, tax or take away energy or attention that your body could be giving to your eyes. Certain medications can be pro-inflammatory, right? They dehydrate, cause headaches and, inflammation. We know, just look at the side effects. And ultimately dehydration, right? A lot of people aren't drinking enough water. Speaking of which.
Cheers.
Cheers. So we want to stay hydrated. When's the best time of day to drink water? Morning. Because we dehydrated overnight. Breathing alone, we lose about 1 liter of water vapors just from breathing. First thing in the morning, best time to drink water. Flush out the kidneys, flush out the bladder, rehydrate the body. What's the first thing most people do in the morning? What's the first thing most people drink in the morning? Coffee. What does coffee do? Dehydrates you. It's a diuretic. Love coffee. All for coffee. Just have it after you've had a couple glasses of water and maybe a little bit of food. Because what it does is it's a stimulant and it's a diuretic. So you're actually going to be more dehydrated. Wake you up a little bit, but hydrate before, okay? Oxidative stress. Everybody's heard of free radicals?
Yeah.
Great. So free radicals attack your body. It's not that they're bad, all right? Free radicals, they're normal. We all have them. They're necessary for breaking down garbage, going after disease processes in the body. It's our cleanup system, right? That's how we clean up garbage in our body. What happens is we get too much free radical activity in the body, and that creates a negative charge in our body, all right? It also is pro-inflammatory and accelerates aging and degeneration, all right? That's why we take antioxidants. So the cumulative damage can really accelerate progressive vision loss. So what we found is there are some key antioxidants that really target the brain and the eye, right? We know carotenoid antioxidants to be one of those. Carotenoid antioxidants, as you might guess from the root word carrot, comes from carrots. We've known for pretty much ever that carrots are good for your eyes. Why? Because they have beta-carotene vitamin A, which is a carotenoid that lines the retina and the skin, and it protects the body from UV radiation. So that's the next thing I want to talk about. What carotenoid antioxidants do for the body is what I just said. They protect against UV radiation and blue light. That's their function. What two parts of our body are susceptible to damage from sunlight, blue light, and UV radiation?
Skin.
Eyes, skin. Yeah. So when we take carotenoid antioxidants, they're going to saturate to where? The skin and the eyes. That's why we test your levels. We check your levels of carotenoid antioxidants. It's that important, right? Carotenoid antioxidants, arguably, it's in my top 3. It's one of the single most important nutrients. And we know this all over research, right? Take your lutein, take your vitamin A, take your retinal palmitate, eat your leafy green vegetables, zeaxanthin, lutein, astaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin, right? Everybody's I have to try the orange algae, or maybe I'm going to take the zeaxanthin, that's better, but the meso is even better. I don't care. They're all, the common denominator is they're all carotenoid antioxidants. Just get your levels up. A mixed bag is great. You want to get it from different sources. So your body, you can't take krill oil because you're allergic to shrimp. Great, have some carrots. You can't have carrots, you're worried about that. Great, take lutein and zeaxanthin and leafy greens. So what they do is they protect the retina. And the cool thing is, when we load up our body on carotenoid antioxidants, we're also protecting against what? Skin cancer. Right? It protects the skin from UV radiation. That causes skin cancer. So when we load the skin up, I mean, you watch the commercials or any of the beauty aids. Ooh, now with retinol, you know, all that to protect the skin. The estheticians know very well that retinol is very valuable to protect the skin, and that's a carotenoid antioxidant. So again, we check your levels. We will not be testing them the week or two when you guys finish up. Why is that? Everyone says, wow, you didn't do my carotenoids again. It takes 3 to 6 months for the carotenoid antioxidants to build up in the body, to saturate. Okay, so that means it's a fat-soluble nutrient, so it's going to take a little bit time versus a water-soluble nutrient which gets in your body immediately. Like you can take a super high dose of vitamin C and saturate your body. B complex, same thing. Vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E, these are all fat-soluble nutrients. So it's just going to take a little more time to build up in your system. But we'll get there. So the plan, how does acupuncture actually work? How does it affect? What is the mechanism of action by which it actually helps improve vision? All right, we did our research at Johns Hopkins University in Nova Southeastern, and one of the greatest things about doing that research is it really got a lot clearer. We don't know everything that's happening. We got a lot more clear on the mechanism of action and how acupuncture actually works. We know it increases the blood flow to the eye. We tested that through ocular Doppler, which is a machine that checks blood flow to the eye. So we know without question now acupuncture increases blood flow to the eye. We also know that it stimulates the entire visual system. It does. There's functional MRIs that show when you put these you needle these acupuncture points, we know the visual fields increase. We can see on a functional MRI the visual cortex lighting up as soon as you put the needle in. Functional MRI, that means a live, real-time viewing of what's going on in the brain. You can see the visual cortex light up. That means the entire visual system is activated, all right? How these guys knew this 4,000 years ago, that these points would activate the visual cortex, it's amazing. It really is amazing to me. But it's so cool. This is why I love conventional diagnostic methods and modern technology, because we could use the modern technology to better understand what we do and how what we do works with this stuff. So we're waking up sleeping cells, all right? There's a big component to this treatment called cell dormancy, and that's really based on how your vision's going to improve, all right? So let's say, for example, you have 50% vision loss, okay? Of that 50%, some percent of those cells that aren't functioning are sleeping, some are dead, okay? The only way to tell is to stimulate them. After we stimulate them, say 35% of those cells were sleeping and 15% were dead. Once we stimulate that, 35% of the vision is going to come back, right? But we don't know that before going in. All I know is 50% of the vision's lost. I don't know how much of that lost vision is dead or dormant. That's the unknown. Why? Because we don't have equipment yet that we could check each individual cell and see if it has a heartbeat. You know, we just can't do that. We don't have technology that's sensitive. Yeah, what's up?
So does that eliminate the bad cells too? Let's see, I lost my train of thought.
So the bad cell. So does it? So we have 4 types of cells.
Dead cells in the body, so it helps the flow.
Yeah. So good point. So even though there is dead cells, what happens is, I'm going to jump forward to neuroplasticity because you brought it up, and that's the brain's ability to adapt. Even though there is some dead optic nerve fibers, retinal cells, the brain, we talked earlier, the brain sees. The eyes do not see. They're just your satellite dish and antennas to take the information in. The brain has this process called, real fancy word called neuroplasticity, just meaning the brain adapts, right? It adapts to changing situations. And we want to, that's one of the best things that acupuncture does. It stimulates the neuroplasticity, and what happens is the brain reroutes and reconfigures to deal with the changing vision, all right? So it can kind of reroute and kind of be efficient as possible with the visual information coming in. So what happens is, some of you guys, we start treatment and the brain doesn't quite catch up to with the vision. So sometimes the photoreceptors will wake up, but the neuroplasticity is a little bit slower than the eyes are to pick up. And this is what I just had a conversation with this last week. It took me forever to figure out this phenomenon, but this is what I hear. Patients say, you know I did better on my tests. Last week, this is a perfect example. I got 4 lines better. I was reading 4 lines better. And I know I'm seeing better, but I'm not seeing better. Does that make sense? And like 15, 20 years ago when I was doing this, I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, what do you mean you're seeing better but not seeing better? Because I didn't understand. You know, having done a lot more research and study in neuroscience and understanding the brain, and having the privilege to work with some neurologists and neuro-ophthalmologists and people who really specialize in brain health, they help me understand that a little better. So neuroplasticity really helps the body to overcome and compensate for visual deficiencies. So sometimes even when we can't get the cells back, we can improve the brain's ability to see and manage like whatever visual information is coming in. Make sense? Okay. The other thing is it promotes a parasympathetic response. All right, that's the rest and digest. We have the fight or flight, which is our stress response. We have our parasympathetic, which is our healing, rest, and recovery response. When we're dealing with neurological conditions, you have to this is my experience, we have to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. With muscle pains, with digestion, maybe a headache, you don't have to. Like somebody could be sitting there, you could do acupuncture and the pain will just go away. When we're dealing with neurodegenerative stuff, or if there's like a deeper trauma to the brain or the eye, I consider the brain and the eye part of the same thing. So when I say brain, eye, it's basically the same thing that I'm talking about. To get that level of healing, we have to drop into alpha. Alpha is a lower, more relaxed brainwave activity. Then we go to theta, then we go to delta. We can't heal when we're in beta or high beta. Just neurologically, we have to drop into that level of alpha. So you're going to feel a little bit more relaxed. Maybe you feel you need to sleep a little bit more. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I slept so many more hours than usual. These are all good signs. Why? Your body's healing. I get concerned when patients are like, oh yeah, I was up all night. I only slept 3 hours last night. They come in, you know, I come in and check on them. I'm like, you doing okay? And they're like, oh yeah, I thought you forgot about me. I'm like, it's been 10 minutes. You know, I'm just checking in. So, but you know, that tells you, so that's like an example of somebody who's like maybe type A or high stress. We really want to get the body to start relax. So I don't mind because, oh, I'm so tired, I'm dragging. That's great. Just your body's way of communicating to you. It's going into a healing mode. All right, so just if you have any questions about that, so I'm asking about your sleep at night. So why does he keep asking me about my sleep? I'm here for my eyes. Because that's when you heal, right? We're doing the treatments, we're getting the healing going. The deepest healing that's happening is happening at night when you're sleeping. Okay? Very important. We're also working on the blood vessels, repairing and maintaining the integrity and structural integrity of the blood vessels. Why? Because we talked about something earlier where the oxygen levels and the circulation to the eyes is important. Also, new research has shown over the last 2 to 3 years that acupuncture is phenomenal at stimulating the release of stem cells, endogenous stem cells that come from our body, primarily from our bone marrow, secondarily from our fat cells. So, you know, people are going out spending, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on stem cell treatments where they're taking external stem cells from whatever and putting them in your eye. Guess what? We have this thing called the immune system. So first of all, if they're not our own immune cells, the body's going to attack and get rid of them. So like the fetal pig stem cells or somebody harvesting somebody else's, unless it's like your own stem cells or you have a twin, and I don't even think that's going to work, your body's going to attack them and get rid of them. So the first thing is if you're going to do stem cell therapy, it has to be your own stem cells. All right? So basically they're transplanting them. The harvesting here, spinning them in a centrifuge to get the plasma out, then the plasma has the stem cells and they put them back in. Now the problem is that is what? That's kind of like impregnation type of thing, right? We're injecting the stem cells and we're hoping they take root, just like when we're trying to have a baby. So what happens is you have ocular infertility, meaning that it's a pretty harsh environment. You know, the environment is already sick. It's inflamed. It's acidic. There's poor blood flow. There's a lot of junk in there. There's metabolic buildup. So the environment is not hospitable to a healthy stem cell. So they're going to die. Sometimes you get trauma too, or you know, aggravation on the injections and stuff like that. If you guys are interested, I have a whole presentation on stem cell. But the long and the short is stem cell is a viable therapy. But why not use your own, right? If you know anything about stem cells in children are used for growth and development, In adults, they're used for repair and regeneration. So what is acupuncture? It's a micro trauma. Stem cells react to what? Trauma. So if you put some needles around the eyes, stem cells are going to go to that area. We use the electroacupuncture, kicks it up a little bit. We get more stimulation over there. Okay, so we're doing points to stimulate the bone marrow to release the stem cells. The study that I read, the last that I read showed I think they took a blood sample of somebody before they got acupuncture. They tested the unit of blood for quantity of stem cells before. Then they did acupuncture treatment, took more blood out and checked the amount of stem cells in that blood specimen. I think it was 8 to 10 times or something like that increase. So it was really significant. You know what I mean? So not only are we getting a global systemic release of stem cells, but then we're targeting and localizing them towards the eyes. So that's how we repair. That's how we repair damage in sick cells. So we talked about dormant cells in the eyes. We also have sick cells and damaged cells that need repair. So we're going to release growth factors and stem cells to help repair that. Okay? So there are 3 phases of vision care that we kind of look at here. If you've lost vision, the first phase is to try to get back what you lost, if possible. Again, we talked about that example. Maybe there's 50% vision loss. We're not sure how much of that is dead versus dormant. The first phase is try to get back what we can. The second phase is to try to heal the sick cells, the damaged cells. Cells that are sleeping wake up pretty quick. These are the pops that you're going to see in the first week or 2 that you're here. Those are the dormant cells. The longer range, about a year, maybe a year and a half, those are the cells that are repairing and regenerating. They take time. They don't heal as fast as skin cells or hair or nails or anything like that. They recover, but at a slower pace. So what happens is when we repair and regenerate these cells, it's just going to take some time. Okay? The sick cells, the damaged cells. Again, release the stem cells, the growth factors, get the oxygen, the right nutrition. They will heal back. All right? We're trying to recover these cells. Finally, or if you haven't had any vision loss, no vision loss, you're smart, came here early stage, we're going to maintenance because we don't have to recover anything, right? If there is some vision loss after we've recovered what we can recover, usually 8 to 15 months, we're going to talk about that in a sec, then we'll shift to maintenance. After you've maxed out, recovered whatever you can recover, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 12 months, sometimes a year and a half, whatever that is for you, it's different for everybody. Whenever you've maxed out whatever you can recover, then we're trying to help you keep there. Keep what you got. And that's pretty much the entire plan. So people always ask about the first year, the first year, 6 months to a year and a half. That's when the repair process is happening of the damaged and sick cells. So how long do I have to come back? Everybody asks all the time, when do I have to come back? How often do I have to come back? Totally depends. If you have an acute injury to your eye, it's maybe a couple sessions and then you're done because it's not degenerative, okay? If it's a systemic degenerative eye condition, my goal is to get you here as little as possible. I love you guys, but I know it's a pain in the butt to get here. It is, I know, it's a pain. So my goal is to figure out how efficient can we be and get the biggest bang for the buck and keep you here. What's the longest we can ultimately go between sessions and still maintain your vision, okay? So the first year patients, early stage will maybe come back once more during the year for another kind of tune-up to keep things going. Mid-stage, there's a little bit more, not fully advanced, but it's pretty progressed. May need to come back twice more, so maybe do 4 months and 4 months. If you're advanced or you've been going along and the vision's just tanked for whatever reason, it's a big mess. Big mess, more to clean up. So it really has a lot to do with how big of a mess the situation is. It's common sense. If it's a big job and there's a lot going on, it's a lot more work. If you're early stage, there's not too much going on, we're going to try to recover what we can and then help you keep what you got. Okay? We do have some discount plans. We'll talk to you guys about that a little later in the week. So we have videos. Some of you guys may have seen these already. I did this late in 2019. We put together a video series of each one of these, the 7 keys to preserving your vision. If you're not on our email list, talk to the girls. You could get on it. Just go to one of our websites, and there's an opt-in, and then you'll get our email and newsletters and stuff like that. So people ask me all the time, what can I do? What can I do? Maybe I can't come to treatment. Maybe it's going to be a while. Maybe I'm not, I want to do something now to get started to help my vision. Great. There's so much that we can do. First thing is exercise. And before I go through this list, don't discount the simplicity of this and the holistic nature. Because this is what I'm putting up here is just based on conversations that I've had with thousands upon thousands of patients over the last 20 some odd years. Okay? So the first is exercise. I hear this all the time. Patients come back, "Doc, I started exercising. Is it possible my vision got better?" Yeah. Why? What did we talk about earlier with blood flow? What happens when you exercise? What happens to the blood vessels? They dilate, specifically in the periphery, the hands, the feet, and the head. So we're getting more blood flow to the retina through exercise. We already know the million health benefits of regular exercise. But I hear this every week for the past 20 plus years. "Hey, I started exercising. I think my vision's better." Yeah. Keep doing more of that. Okay? Second is stress management. "Oh my God, it's such a stressful week. The last month or two has been crazy. I think my vision got worse because of the stress." I hear this all the time. What happens when we get stressed out or anxious? Vasoconstriction, reduced blood flow to the brain, crowded arteries, all the blood vessels that go up to the head, to the eyes constrict. We get all tense and our whole body just starts constricting, and that's not. It's stress response. So what happens is we get constriction, reduced blood flow. We get catecholamines, all these other inflammatory factors, and adrenaline that come out when we get stressed out. All these stress hormones. So that creates more of a problem. Third is good sleep. Right? We just talked about that. Why do we need good sleep? Because that's when we repair. Right? Chronic poor sleep, even things like sleep apnea, taking Ambien, drinking a bottle of wine before you go to sleep, that is passing out. Taking 3 Tylenol PM and a shot of NyQuil, that is passing out. That is not sleep. You may need a little night to help get you down there, but that's not sleep. Just be clear, right? We really want to make sure that sleep is sleep. It's restorative sleep where you wake up in the morning, you feel refreshed, not hungover. Okay? And what is good sleep? It's different. Some people need 6, some people need 10. Maybe you're going to need different times during the year. When you're stressed out, you should probably be getting more sleep, and most people get less sleep when they're stressed out. Right? So listen to your body. If you need to take a nap in the middle of the day, take a nap. If you need to go to sleep earlier, go to sleep earlier. If you're kind of feeling good and you're up at 5:30 in the morning, you're ready to go, you want to do some exercise or stretching and do that, great. But your sleep is going to be individual and specific. But sleep is one of the most important factors. We know for a fact, neuroscience has shown us that it's one of the top accelerators of all neurodegenerative diseases. I would say probably any disease. Stress, lack of exercise, and poor sleep. Throw a poor diet into there. We talked about hydration already, right? Most of us are dehydrated. Cheers. Taking the right diets and supplements. You guys know I am not into the kitchen sink. I have had patients literally come in with 4 shopping bags that they left outside my office. Can you go through these? No. No, I won't go through these. You're taking too much. It's tough on your stomach, on your kidneys, on your liver. Let's kind of put that on the side and let's start from scratch. Let's go back. Start with what you need, right? Let's go through some of the basics and just get a foundation going. And if you want to take a lot of supplements or there's things, we can rotate them and kind of come up with a plan so you're not like living on vitamins. You want food too, like real whole like food with chi in it and energy and stuff. My top recommendations we're going to talk about in a second. We talked about carotenoid antioxidants. Omega-3 has the most, those are fish oils, omega-3 DHAs, those have the most research around it for neurodegeneration, brain, eyes, any central nervous. Why? Because nerve tissue repair from fat, good healthy fat, right? That doesn't mean go eat like half a box of Dunkin' Donuts. You're talking like avocado, fish oil, coconut oil, your good healthy fats. Protective, omega-3 DHA and then CBD, which we're going to talk about in a second. I'm going to give you a whole little info on that. Protective eyewear, right? You want wraparounds? These glasses that I have right now are flat front because they have a flat front. Wraparounds go all the way around your eyes. They protect because why? The UV and blue light rays bounce off surfaces. right? So it's not just coming this way, it's coming this way and all around. So we want this wraparound protection, right? So that's really, really important, especially if you're around the water, you're around snow, or highly reflective surfaces. This is especially important if you're going for cataract surgery, right? Because you have cataract surgery, you have a filter, right? Your cataracts become a filter, and it's actually filtering out the UV and blue light radiation. You take that out and you put a clear glass in there, or a clear lens in, all of a sudden you're going to get that UV radiation and blue light to your eye that your eye has not been used to. It's really important to have glasses, sunglasses, even if you're sitting in front of windows for the first like month or so. All right, so really, the analogy I give that is like somebody who's kind of in Northern Ireland and lived there all their lives and then goes down to the Bahamas without like sunblock or anything. You can literally sunburn your retinas. You know, you can too much UV radiation, blue light. And of course, ophthalmic acupuncture, which we know is right now it's kind of the only thing going for a lot of these conditions. You know, there's some supplements, but things like RP, Stargardts, dry macular degeneration, optic nerve issues, idiopathic issues, or eye strokes. There's nothing. You know, there's really no conventional biomedical treatment for it. So ophthalmic acupuncture and nutrition and supplements is definitely pretty much what the main course of therapy is. Okay, so today we want to give you guys a little special, and then we'll get into some of the things. This is the first time I'm actually presenting this. I want to talk about, you guys know that we've been recently introduced our new product called CannavVision. This is after 3 years of research that I've been doing on CBD and medical cannabis. I just completed a 7-month program that I was doing educating on the benefits. Why? Because I had a particular interest in brain and eye. Because early on when I first started using acupuncture and herbs for treating eye diseases, we all heard that glaucoma can be benefited through cannabis. So that was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can smoke and drop your eye pressure. But it started my interest about like 10 years ago. And I kind of had this thing that there had to be something to it. But over the last like 2 or 3 years with the surge of the CBD industry and the interest in medical cannabis legislation changing and everything like that, I really became more and more interested because I had a lot of patients starting to use marijuana, starting to use medical cannabis and CBD. So I made it my business to understand, just like I understand stem cell and gene therapy. This is just something new that's coming. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of like, oh, somebody said take this. So I want to give you guys some information too so that you understand not only why it's good, but how to use it and what the differences between different products. Not all CBD is created equal. Most of it's junk. I read an article last month that showed that they randomly took 60 bottles of CBD that just generally out on the market, and I think 60% of them didn't even contain CBD in it. Wow. The reason is it's unregulated right now. So that means you have to do your due diligence. I've done my due diligence, and I've done all the research, so that's why I'm going to share this information with you. So we're going to talk about what's called cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are the constituents, all right, in the plants. We have Phyto Cannabinoids and Endocannabinoids. So we have the ones that are produced in our body, and we have those that come from plants. And specifically, we're going to talk about how they're used for optic nerve and retinal health in the entire visual system. So the first thing we want to look at is what's called the Endocannabinoid System. All right? The Endocannabinoid System was just found very recently in 1990. All right? Israel's been doing a lot of research on this. They're leading the research on cannabis. They have a very liberal healthcare system, and that's pretty much where all the research is going. Actually, Israel, in the 70s, they're the one who isolated the THC molecule and found out that THC is actually what gets you high. That's the active component in marijuana. But we're going to talk about something a little bit different. So the first thing I want you guys to understand is that there is this new system in our body called the Endocannabinoid System. All right? This is a real system in our body. It is the largest system in our body. It connects everything. It's this network, like a web, that just connects every part of our body together. It's fascinating. So inside the system, what we know right now, again, this is really new stuff. So I'm giving you what we have as of right now. Right now, we know that there are a bunch of receptors. So the cannabinoid system is full of receptors, all right? It's similar to the nervous system, like opiate receptors, and we have insulin receptors, a lot of different types of receptors in the body. So what they do is they receive information, very much like a lock and key theory. Okay, that's why we use the lock and key. The general role of the endocannabinoid system is to maintain homeostasis and balance in the body, a dynamic equilibrium. It's always trying to move the body back to balance, which is very similar to how Chinese medicine takes their approach. If it's too hot, we cool it down. If it's too dry, we make it moist. If it's too cold, we warm it up. If it's too, too damp, we try to dry it out a little bit, right? So if it's too excess or too hyperactive, we try to sedate it. If it's fatigue, we try to tonify and strengthen it. So it's similar in this regulatory effect. And again, we talked about being the largest network known in the body right now. So we have these two receptor sites. There are a lot of receptor sites, but the two main receptor sites that we know about right now are called CB1 and CB2, or CBR1 and CBR2. Cannabinoid receptor site 1, cannabinoid receptor site 2. All right? Generally speaking, the CB1 receptor sites are focused in are primarily focused in the central nervous system, the brain, the eyes, and the spinal cord. CB2 receptor sites are more distributed in the peripheral nervous system, digestion, and immune system. Okay, so that's important to know because we want to know where we want to target the specific cannabinoids. So we just know. So what that tells us is the research shows that in the eye, in the retina, and the optic nerve, both exist, even though there is a relative majority of CB1 receptors, because we know that's primarily what we see in the brain and the eye. There are CB2 receptor sites in the brain and eye as well. So we know we have both of those. Okay, so you guys, it's kind of a general overview. You guys getting that? So all you need to know is there's this big system in the body that has receptor sites. Our body produces its own endocannabinoids. All right, there are two types of endocannabinoids, anandamide and 2-AG. The reason we have this endocannabinoid system is for our body to self-regulate. Now, because we've gotten so far away from eating plants and vegetables, and we've had so much synthetic technological stress in our lives, our body has kind of not produced much of this. All right. So basically, we have this endocannabinoid system with all these open receptors, kind of like a flower, like standing like this, waiting to receive, neurotransmitter input, but nothing's happening. So they're just kind of sitting there, like waiting to be regulated, but nothing's happening. So we use things like acupuncture and holistic living to stimulate the body's own production of endogenous endocannabinoids. But what's happened is over time, over the last 100 years or so, since there's been prohibition of medical cannabis, and it's not even in the air, it's not even pollinated, right? We don't have hemp infused into our food. The old animals, farm animals used to eat hemp. That was their diet. So we got the oils, we got the cannabinoids, and we got all that from food sources. We got that from pollination. It was in our food and drink and beverages, just part of our industry. Industrial hemp was a huge part, more than 100 years ago, up to 4,000 years ago. It's just the last 100 years when there's been, prohibition and stuff like that. So the effect of that is that we've become deficient in cannabinoids. So what we're looking to now to supplement these insufficiencies is through plant-based called Phyto Cannabinoids, all right? And we found that there is one plant in nature that is exceptionally robust in its content of cannabinoids. That's cannabis, okay? There's hemp cannabis, which has 0.3 or less of THC. THC is the stuff that gets you high. And there is cannabis, which is called marijuana, which originally in its normal state had a pretty good balance of CBD and other endocannabinoids we're going to talk about, and THC. Basically, the old marijuana really didn't get you so high, like the ones that use in endogenous tribes in India and China, and it was pretty weak stuff. It's been genetically engineered over the last 100 years to make you out of your mind, stuff like that. So it's just the way it's gone, and that's just consumer driven. So it's been genetically engineered to really whack people out. But to that, it's also been concentrated, and the concentration has also been shown to be quite helpful for certain medical conditions. So I want to take another quick step back. When we look at the human endocannabinoid system, the ECS is a representation we use for endocannabinoid system. We look at things like regulating body temperature, right? So somebody's too cold or too hot, it helps regulate body temperature. So things like menopause, right? People like run too hot, or they're just cold all the time, thyroid issues, or just anemia. Right, yeah, hot flashes too. So it helps regulate the body. So we're using like cannabinoids really effectively, and again, I know this about vision, but I figure we'll give you guys a little bit broad perspective here, really effective in helping regulate the hormonal shifts that men go through too. Women go through menopause, guys go through adrenopause, where the adrenal glands in the testosterone levels shift. So it helps with that transition. Blood sugar levels, diabetes an issue these days, huge, one of the top 3 killers, right? Diabetes is huge. We can use some help with our blood sugar regulation. Our diet's horrible, we're not exercising, and most of the food we have is processed. We could definitely use some help with blood sugar regulation. We also know that it helps with our pH, right? Our acid levels, that's why we use alkaline diet, things like alkaline water that we use. Keeping a healthy pH that's not too alkaline, not too acidic is very important to overall homeostasis and wellness. It helps with the absorption of water and minerals in the body, the electrolyte and fluid balances in our body. We get edema, we get a swelling and fluid, or we get dehydrated because we get electrolyte insufficiency. It's very, very important. Metabolic waste, this is huge. Guys, with all these eye conditions, what is one of the main characteristics that are similar with most of these eye conditions? You all have ocular waste buildup. You got glaucoma, it's water excess, fluid excess. You got RP, you got pigmentation buildup. You got Stargardt's, you got drusen, you got macular degeneration. Dry type, you got drusen buildup. You got wet type, you got blood accumulation. That sits in status. So there's either there's an increase of metabolic waste holding on to the body's not efficiently getting rid of, whether it's solid or liquid. Of course, there's going to be gaseous as well. So again, the treatment and the therapy that we're going to use is going to be designed to stimulate the body's own endogenous production of anandamide and 2-AG. Those are what our body produces ourselves, and we're going to supplement to tone up the ECS. We're going to use plant-based, okay? Plant-based cannabinoids. So enter CannavVision. What is CannavVision? CannavVision is our new CBD product. It is a full spectrum product. There are different types of CBD products. You have full spectrum. Full spectrum means it has 0.3 THC in it. Not nearly enough. Like you'll feel more woozy after a cup of sleepy time tea or a T-bone steak. You have there's no psychoactive effects from that, right? It's not going to make you high. It's not going to make you loopy, like nothing. But it is enough. It is whole plant. It's a whole plant. That's why I like full spectrum, because there's this thing called the Entourage Effect. And this goes through all Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, herbal medicine, where the entire plant, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Meaning if you use the whole plant, there's stuff in the plant that's useful, that's better than if you just extract the different, isolates from it. So if you isolate CBD, it's not going to be as powerful if you take a whole plant-based extract. Now, that said, we know that there are people who either have issues, they're not comfortable taking any products with THC in it, maybe children, maybe you're working, maybe you have to get drug tested for your job. If you take full spectrum, it will show up in your urine. So we have what's called broad spectrum. We have a broad spectrum CBD CannavVision product that has no THC in it. All right, we don't have a lot of patients, but we have people who work for the state, we have people working for the airlines, teachers, or whatever jobs are still drug testing, which is going to soon become a HIPAA violation, because now that medical cannabis is legal, people are taking it. You can't test if somebody's medically prescribed for that. So there's going to be HIPAA. So the HIPAA laws are going to have to change around that. So we created that. Why did I create this? Again, because there's so much junk out there. There's so many patients taking this, and it took me a year to source a company that I liked. Now, this is a whole list of what it does. This is research-based. None of this stuff is anything. Actually, there's one on here that is not research-based, and I'll tell you exactly what that is. So the first thing that research shows is CBD and full spectrum reduces inflammation, without question. Right? Without question, reduces inflammation. And we talked about inflammation driving a lot of these conditions. We know that it's neurogenic. Neurogenesis means it actually regenerates nerve tissue. Proven. It's regenerative of nerve and brain tissue. Neuroplasticity helps the brain adapt. The whole visual system needs to adapt. We talked about that. Neuroprotective. We have to protect the nerves from what? From heat, from oxidative stress, from attack. They need to be coated and protected, right? Just like us, we don't run around naked. You know, you got to protect. When it's sunny out, when it's windy out, we need to be protected. Antioxidant protection. We talked about the importance of antioxidant protection, oxidative stress, running, especially conditions like age-related macular degeneration. It is a disease of oxidative stress. So in addition, we talked about carotenoid antioxidants being really important. This is equally important, in my opinion. It's a different type of antioxidant with a slightly different mechanism, but it is just as equal of importance. Prevents angiogenic neovascularization. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
Angiogenic neovascularization, that is when you have new blood vessel growth, wet macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. Anytime there's retinal bleeding, what happens is there's poor blood flow to the retina, so the body says, ooh, let's grow new blood vessels to feed the retina. So it does that. Those new blood vessels are very weak, all right, and fragile. So what happens is you get wet macular degeneration, you get bleeding. You go to the doctor, they give you shots of what's called anti-VEGF, which stops the bleeding. Guess what? CBD is its own anti-VEGF, and it stops the genesis of these new blood vessels because it maintains oxygen levels. When there's good oxygen in blood levels, the body doesn't need to grow new blood vessels. Okay? The biggest research shows that it helps with night vision. Hands down. Night vision is, the research has shown the biggest benefit of CBD and is to really help benefit night vision and dark adaptation secondarily. But every bit of research that you find for retinal health is going to show that night vision is, you're going to see that everywhere. Neurotransmitter conduction, all right? Those are the impulses that are carried from our brain, right? Our neurotransmitter is very, very important in brain function and vision. These are like GABA, serotonin, dopamine. These are all things that make you feel good, that make you feel healthy and, you know, things are good. Things are good, you know?
Yeah.
It's good. It's okay. I'm all right. You know? We got coronavirus, but it's okay. I'm all right. You know, I'm not freaking out. The neurotransmitters are dysregulated. It's, you know, gonna die. You know, I need to, you know, go down to Antarctica or go to, you know, British, you know, great, you know, stay in the British Rockies or something like that. Improves sleeps and restores homeostasis because it's regulating the central nervous system, right? We all know CBD is really useful for sleep, right? Helps the body restore its natural biorhythms, and the sleep cycle reduces stress and anxiety and panic and the, you know, the overwhelm that we're dealing with that. Just dealing with the vision stuff alone, you need to just, you know, chill a little bit. It helps. Supports vascular health, the flexibility of the blood vessels, right? What happens is the blood vessels get stiff and they get hard and they break and they crack and we start bleeding and you get, you know, arterial sclerosis and atherosclerosis. So it keeps the blood vessels soft and squishy and pliable so that the blood can go through there. Tones the immune system, right? We talked about that. We have a hyperactive immune system, like with retinitis pigmentosa, Stargardt's, a lot of these conditions. It's autoimmune based, or you have a low immune system where the immune system isn't, you know, you have kind of maybe susceptible to eye infections or stuff like that, conjunctivitis. So we want to tone the immune system because a lot of these eye conditions, especially the genetic ones, have a lot, are tied into the neurological immune system. They're called neuroimmune diseases. That is not even on the radar with conventional biomedicine, but I know that because 60 to 70% of my patients with RP and Stargardt's and Usher syndrome, they all have family history. Somebody in their family has some type of autoimmune, whether it's thyroid, Hashimoto's, Crohn's, colitis, asthma, MS, you know, skin disease like eczema, psoriasis. There is something. Like we see that very, very often. So the first gen, I would say 60% of my patients here with retinitis pigmentosa are first generation. That means this is a genetic disease. Supposedly it's genetic, but at least half the people I see, there's no genetic component. So what does that mean? It means that you're first gen and something caused the gene signaling to change and the gene expression changed. And also, again, lastly, we talked about it, aids in the removal of metabolic waste. Drew, I suspect this. I'm going to be watching this over the next year or two when we do our OCTs, all right? I haven't proven this yet. This is still theory for me because I haven't seen it yet. It's going to take about a year, I think, a year to two to get this because it's a slow wash. We're looking for reductions in drusen, pigmentation. We know that it gets rid of CME, cystoid macular edema, and CSR. So any excess fluid on the retina, we know it gets rid of that. Not all cases, but most cases. We have a lot of patients who have used medical cannabis and in a day, like gone from like this huge edema thing to in cystoid macular edema. See, it resolves it and keeps it away pretty progressively. So there's a lot of it. And one of my favorite, coolest things about cannabis, no side effects. None. Like none. Like you get a good night's sleep. That's it. Nobody has ever, listen to this, nobody has ever, I mean ever, died from cannabis overdose. Ever. Why? Because it doesn't go to the brainstem. There are no, we talked about the CB receptor sites in the endocannabinoid system, there are none in the brainstem. Alcohol, opiates, drugs go to the brainstem. That's why people overdose and they die. You can smoke too much or to eat a brownie and you could freak out, you know, but you're not going to die. You can be stupid and go out and drive, you know, when you're high. So the behavior will get you injured, but the actual chemical exposure, no, risk-free. So that's what I love about it. Remember we talked about my criteria? Can't do harm. So, and that's, again, we're talking about just the THC with that, okay? So let's talk a little bit about, when we talk about the constituents. So again, we talked about full spectrum has a little bit of THC in it, not enough to kind of get you high or anything. So there's no intoxicating effects, but it is, I like that it has a little bit in there because it's this entourage effect that just makes it work better, okay? That's my preference. But I do appreciate there are some people who are kind of a no-go and a no-fly zone with that. So the CannavVision that we produce, the reason I chose this strain, it's a strain of cannabis, is because it's very high in a couple of things. It's very high in CBD. We know that that's the main component that we're looking at. And CBD helps with autoimmune. It regulates the immune system. We talked about that. Controls inflammation, helps with vascular support, will break up drusen, and also we know it's an anti-VEGF, which will help prevent going from dry type to wet type. Like, how awesome is that? Like, really, really good stuff. Then we have CBC, which is another. That's in very small doses in the CannavVision. You don't need very much of that. It is another very, very powerful anti-inflammatory. It also is a less powerful anti-VEGF. It also drops eye pressure. This is why I added this, because it drops eye pressure. There's been some talk, not really confirmed yet, that CBD in high doses may slightly reduce or increase eye pressure. I've tested it on my patients who've gone through using CBD. I have not seen that, anything significant, but just because of that, we made sure that the strain had CBC to make sure it has that eye pressure lowering effect, all right? We also made sure it has equal values of CBA, all right? CannavVision I wanted to make sure it has equal values of CBA. CBA also very, very important for cases like diabetic retinopathy and wet type or dry type macular degeneration, so we don't form these new blood vessels. It's anti-VEGF. Inflammation, and also is an antimicrobial. So we know that it's really powerful for helping regulate the immune system, right? If your immune system's weak, this is also really helpful for cancer. So antimicrobial is actually a really good antifungal, the CBA. So if any of you guys have like a fungal infection, like a toenail infection or anything like that, like yeast fungus, take some of that, just put it topically on, that'll get rid of it. So really good too. Women who are susceptible to yeast infections, awesome. Just taking it internally is like anti-yeast, antifungal, really effective. People have like athlete's foot, really susceptible to that, super beneficial. So I wanted to take this is why, and I'm just being transparent and disclosing why I chose this strain, because it's so high. So it's not just the CBD. Also, the product that we put together is very, very, very high potency. It's 2,500 milligrams per ounce. That is really high potency, all right? That means you're getting about 83 milligrams per shot. My research, where I'm at right now, I don't want, for a therapeutic dose, you have to be taking at least 100 milligrams a day, bare minimum. I like between 1 and 200. The more going on, I'm usually going to get you up more towards 200, right? So 2 drops a day, they're going to put you about 1,600. 3 drops a day, it's going to put you just over 200, which is fine. Again, no risk, totally safe. I do recommend that people titrate up the dose, especially dealing with kids. Start with 1 dropper a day. You know, half dropper in the morning. Then do 1 in the morning, half drop in the morning, half drop in the evening. Work up to it. You can't take too much. You're super stressed out, a lot's going on. You take another dose during the day. General recommendation is 2 times a day, sublingually, under your tongue. Hold it for about 30 seconds to a minute. Why? Because we're going to bypass the stomach. If you swallow it, you're only going to digest half of it. All right? Under your tongue, it goes right into your bloodstream and bypasses the digestive system. You just get more bang for your buck. All right? On a side note, the absolute best and fastest way to get CBD into your system for the brain and the eyes is through vaping. But we're not really going to have people do that. It's just the fastest delivery to the brain and the eye. If somebody's in a pinch, that's why I have people who have retinal bleeding or retinal fluid. Like, we will recommend that they sometimes, there's a couple companies that we know that have really high quality vape cartridges for CBD. And again, I know there's all this stuff out with the lung stuff. That is totally unregulated. The nicotine ones, that is not the CBD, the regulated CBD cartridges. It's only the nicotine. It's because they're using vitamin E, when they should have been using other stuff. And the vitamin E got in people's lungs and it screwed them up. And again, that's just the nicotine vapes. But this stuff is very controlled, nothing to worry about with that. But again, I'm not totally huge on smoking, unless somebody needs like a quick dose to kind of get it in their system. But that's just some research. The therapeutic dose, it says around 100 to 200 milligrams a day. We titrate up. The only thing I want you guys to know is it may drop blood pressure. So if you're on blood pressure medications, especially if you're older, just be careful with that. Please monitor your blood pressure. If you feel woozy or anything, the end result is you may need to take less of your blood pressure medication. So just keep note of that. And again, the reason I chose this strain is it really targets, because of the CBA and the CBD and the high potency, it really targets the brain and the eye and the central nervous system. Okay, so our goal is to invest daily in our vision, keep our eyes healthy and strong, and that's our outcome. You guys have questions?
So this is not on YouTube?
No. No. The CannavVision, you saw it first. Yeah, I'm recording it now. We're going to be putting it up. Yeah.
So for us people that are here with our patients that have...
Well is relative.
Well, I'm saying I have problems sleeping at night, and I would take a Xanax once in a while to get a good night's sleep. And it's like you say, I'm sleeping, but I'm not really sleeping.
Right.
So that's not great. But would that help?
Totally.
So is that something? Yeah.
It's definitely helpful, and thank you for bringing that up. Well, you have to give CBD 2 weeks. Okay. Like, you can't even make it, be like, all right, I have patients who's like, yeah, I tried it 2 nights and I didn't see anything. This is fat soluble. Like, you may see immediate results, but you got to give it a fair chance. 2 weeks is enough just to get it into your system. It's going to take 6 months before, if you have a pretty significant health condition, you got to give it 3 to 6 months just to get into your system and see real changes. 2 weeks, if you got a little pain, you're taking it for inflammation, you're taking it for hot flashes. Here, I'll tell you my own testimonial with this. I started taking the CannavVision before I labeled. I found the strain and I was taking it for myself. I am good for getting sick at least 3 times a year. I've always had a pretty weak immune system. When I go teach, I've had allergies. So I have a weakened immune system. That's always been a struggle for me. This year is the first year ever, and I will say ever, that I can remember that I didn't get sick in the winter. Last time I had a cold was June. And I am always, seriously, I'm always like got a chest cold and sinus thing. The only thing I did different was I take the high potency CBD twice a day. So, and that's like not even, and I didn't expect that. I'm like, it's good. I might as well take it because, I'm kind of recommending I might as well do it. And I wanted to see what benefits I would get from it. More, it was just like to help kind of keep me relaxed and everything. But, so I, without question, and that helps too. I know with a lot of these conditions we talked about, there's definite immune function in there. So that's why we're also showing cannabis is very, very useful for cancer. As an adjunctive therapy to help increase the immune system. But it is definitely not a cure-all. But if you know what cannabinoids are doing what, and we're going to find out more about that as research comes, it's great. And do I recommend like higher concentrations of THC for some patients? Yeah. There's some patients that I'll recommend a 1-to-1 to take like some THC and some CBD for certain situations. But what I like about the CannavVision, anybody can take it. Okay. My kids take it. It's great for ADD, ADHD. That's one of the things that I use for my kids. I got 3 boys with ADD, ADHD. It's my oldest is off medication now. He was on medication for about a year. When he was going to high school, education really starts becoming a lot more serious, and he was struggling. So we put him on, some meds to help him with his focus concentration, and we went back. It's crazy. We went back. I think my wife said it was 2 or 3 months ago, and he tested perfect. They're like, he doesn't have his concentration and focus is. Wow. I mean, he hit puberty, maybe, but the only other thing was the CBD that he'd been on. So, yeah. So, I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening and giving us your undivided attention. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You guys can go through tomorrow, and thank you too for joining us. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right?
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great night.